Today is Monday, December 8, 2025. The United States has just released its latest national security strategy, an announcement that signals one of the most significant strategic shifts in recent American history. For the first time in years, China is no longer defined as America's primary threat. The document marks a decisive turn in how Washington views global priorities, great power competition, and its own national interests. This shift also provides new context for President Trump's recent policy recalibrations. During his first term, many analysts believed Trump possessed sharp political instincts and a flexible, improvisational style. But the past 4 years were consumed by legal battles, political pressure, and an assassination attempt, leaving little room for strategic reflection. Meanwhile, China continued to study, adapt, and strengthen its position. Back in February, some observers had already concluded that the trade war was unwinnable for the United States. They warned that sitting at the negotiating table would only expose America's weaknesses. At the time, only a small group of analysts understood this. But after the tariff strikes of this year, that realization has spread. A much larger portion of the policy community now sees that the tariff war and the broader attempt to economically pressure China ultimately hurt the United States more. And that reality is now openly acknowledged in Washington. A new strategic framework. The new national security strategy outlines 4 top priorities, in a sequence that fundamentally reshapes U.S. foreign policy. 1. Homeland security. First, the foremost priority is domestic, border security, the fight against drug cartels, illegal immigration, crime, and social instability. Trump has repeatedly said he is the President of the United States, not the President of the world, and the strategy reflects exactly that. Securing the homeland comes before foreign commitments. 2. A return to the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, rewritten. The document declares the Western Hemisphere as America's #1 external priority. This effectively revives the Monroe Doctrine, now presented as a Trump revision, asserting that the Americas are within the U.S. sphere of influence. Washington will shift military deployments and strategic resources back toward regional security, reducing involvement in areas deemed less critical to U.S. national interests. Three, economic security and reindustrialization. America will push for reindustrialization, strengthen domestic supply chains, and reduce overdependence on foreign production. The strategy openly admits that current supply chain vulnerabilities, especially reliance on China, pose national security risks. 4. China and the Indo-Pacific, no longer the central threat. China is now listed 4th. It is no longer labeled the pacing threat, the most consequential challenge, or any of the terms frequently used during the Biden era. Instead, China is described as an economic competitor, a source of supply chain dependency, and a regional power whose influence the U.S. hopes to manage, not defeat. Notably, the strategy avoids ideological language. Gone are references to democracy versus autocracy, values-based competition, or defending a rules-based international order. China is treated as a real-world challenge, not an ideological enemy. A quiet but historic admission. For the first time, an official U.S. national security document admits, explicitly or implicitly, that in certain regions, China may already hold military advantages. Analysts have been hinting at this for months. Recent RAND reports warned that the U.S. should avoid direct confrontation with China, as a conflict would shatter long-held assumptions about American superiority. The new strategy also states that Taiwan is no longer a top-tier strategic priority. The U.S. acknowledges that unless its first island chain allies dramatically increase their defense commitments, Washington would be unable to defend Taiwan in a real conflict. This is unprecedented. The end of America's missionary foreign policy. Perhaps the most striking shift is philosophical. The strategy declares that U.S. foreign policy will no longer be based on exporting ideology or promoting democratic transformation abroad. Instead, the US will seek practical, peaceful commercial relations, even with countries whose political systems differ sharply from its own. This applies to China, and even to Russia. It marks the end of decades of liberal internationalist rhetoric and the beginning of a purely pragmatic era. Trade war, officially a failure. In another first, the document admits that the tariff war launched in 2017 has effectively failed. China adapted, reinforced its supply chains, and weathered US tariffs far better than expected. Meanwhile, the US still relies on Chinese imports, from rare earths to pharmaceutical ingredients, and cannot afford further escalation. Tariff pressure is now seen as counterproductive and economically harmful to the US itself. Looking ahead, 4 planned US-China summits in 2026. President Trump has already expressed hope for renewed cooperation with China. He expects to meet Chinese leaders 4 times in 2026. 1. A presidential visit to China. 2. A reciprocal state-level visit to the United States. 3. A meeting during APEC. And 4. Another during the G20 or a similar summit. Trump hopes these engagements will usher in a G2 era, a period of Sino-American coordination and shared global leadership after years of tension. If successful, Washington and Beijing could enter a honeymoon period by mid or late 2026. Many analysts agree that the US and China are natural economic complements. America consumes, China produces. Unlike Europe, which competes directly with China industrially, the US and China have structural incentives to cooperate. The 2025 National Security Strategy represents a dramatic reordering of US strategic priorities. It acknowledges the limits of American power, the failure of the tariff war, and the reality of China's growing influence. It also signals a turn toward pragmatism, domestic stabilization, regional focus, and economic rebuilding. Late or not, this shift demonstrates that Washington has begun to adapt to a changing world, and that the next 3 years of US-China relations may look very different from the last 8. Settings. Use appropriate media.